Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Digital Marketing Podcast. Hi, Alex. Welcome. How are you today?
Good. Very good. How about you, Rocco?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanksgiving is coming over here, so I need to get ready to eat some food and be able to still walk after that. So we will see how that goes. Americans take Thanksgiving pretty seriously when it comes to lunch. Uh, it's It's differently than the name of our episode. There is no change in customer behavior there. They eat a lot on Thanksgiving, similar to Europeans at Christmas Day. But have you ever experienced a Thanksgiving in the US, Alex?
I'm trying to think about it. No, I guess it's like the time where I've tried to escape. And it's also all the times that I've been in the US. I think it's also because of the US customs that, no one is available. When people are on, they're on and they work very hard. And when they're off, they're off and relaxing a lot. Hence, I mean, most of my trips to the US have always been sort of job related.
Yeah.
So it's been like a given start and a given end, with very like clear boundaries to public holidays, considering that the US have so few.
Yeah, that's makes sense. Like, I mean, US is a big trip also from Europe, Alex. And the topic we're talking today likely applies worldwide differently in different countries, of course, but is a shifting customers' behavior, which is nothing new, of course, like shifting customers' behaviors that happen for a long time, but it's getting more and more pronounced over time because one person thinks of shifting customer behavior just in the shift from TV to digital. But also within digital, looking at the previous episodes we have done, there is a lot that is happening, starting from, for example, this rise of ChatGPT and other variants of AI that has become a new way to consume information. So essentially, when it comes to consumer behavior, it's not necessarily what device they're using, but is how are they consuming information and getting to a decision. And these shifts are becoming more and more pronounced as more technology is essentially available. And I believe that now, for example, the other day I was looking at ChatGPT, they have a Chrome extensions where you can search directly on Chrome, trying to bypass Google. So essentially, Alex, here the big question is how can somebody that is working at a firm in any sort of marketing capacity keep up with that to understand where to reach the consumer? Uh, do you have like a method that you use to stay up to date on that?
I mean, the the funny part here is that we often, and I have since quite a while back, um, I believe that marketing isn't siloed. Therefore, I very much believe in sort of the omni-channel belief that if you have a full sort of view of first the user journey, meaning know thy user, and then therefore know your customers, meaning out of your users who are buying and so forth, and how are they finding you, and therefore being able to have almost like a full sort of spectrum of that. And I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, it starts by having very good data, and really trying to pin that down. And I mean, it's it's incredible, and it's actually quite scary nowadays, since GA came into place. It's become a lot more difficult to
Yeah.
set it up in a proper way to actually get accurate data. Um, but I think, to answer the question more directly, yes, the methodology is often that we may start at one channel, but we actually, with the help of data, actually take a full sort of spectrum view, uh, both of what's happening to, and or rather how people get to website or app, uh, and then how they gauge sort of through the website. and where they potentially drop off because of lack of engagement or call to action, or there might be sort of inconsistencies in the customer experience or user experience, and then also like all the way through to customer, and then how you potentially, depending on what you're selling, but you can always do that, have a good personalization in terms of segmentation as well, to personalize your regular automated emails
Yes,
that are going out.
something that I do a lot, particularly with customers that are a little bit more advanced in terms of understanding the importance of this kind of work, is something that I think is very valuable. So let's assume that you're working with a company that has three main target groups. So let's say 18 to 25, 25 to 35, and 35 to 50. What I usually like to do once a year for these customers is to offer a gift card to a group of 10 people per group and have one-on-one interview with them, or focus group, depending what I'm able to organize. And what I ask them is, what do you do before purchasing from a company? What are the steps you take? And it's very fascinating that at least for every group, I come up with at least three things I didn't think of in terms of advertising, how they get to the decision. Essentially, it allows me to enter the mind of a consumer that could not be me, and understand how they navigate. Because many times, us working in marketing, we forget that we are at the computer 8 hours a day. Probably in the evenings we browse through our phones, but we are not, for example, the college students that goes to class and pretty much uses the phone for everything. What do they do to get to that decision? So I kind of feel that this will help companies stay up to date with consumer behavior. And I found it invaluable because guesswork can usually lead to a lot of trial and errors. So I'm trying to kind of remove the amount of errors that we do in figuring that out. But the problem is that not many companies are willing to put the money and the effort into doing that kind of work. So they kind of need to rely on instinct sometimes, don't they?
I think you're doing all the right steps. You have the most valuable people out there, and speaking to clients is something that a lot of companies actually don't do, of some reason. And they are the gold mine. But I think that there are certain extrapolations in terms of that you have marketing personas, or sort of from a B2B point of view, different type of personas, but ideal customer profiles. And ideal customer profiles, I think, are slightly better sort of built and shaped around sort of who you should sell to, while marketing personas are still a bit slightly fluffy. But they're all like aspirational. These are the ones that we believe we should be selling with, and it's very seldom that these are being sort of calibrated to reality, that these are the ones that are buying from us now.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And so I think, and therefore, by learning whom is actually buying from us, because marketing in many organizations, even that they may be small, are siloed. So you often maybe have marketing is here. Marketing's job is to drive leads. Once leads have been driven, has sort of been converted, it gets handed over to someone else, say sales, operations, someone. And then there's no more communication between the two teams, besides that the one team will complain that the quality of the lead sucked. And I think we've all heard that many times.
Yeah, but let's say the quality of the lead sucks, right? But that goes back into the discussion of changing consumer behavior, because a lot of times, particularly when you're dealing with new generations, the way you sell these people is very different than what you might be accustomed to. So it might be that the sales process sucks, right? So there is a lot that goes into that would need to be analyzing as well in changing consumer behavior, right?
Yeah, I mean 100%. But I guess like getting to know this, you need to potentially actually have a conversation. So you have your customers, but you also have your sales.
Yeah.
Depending on sort of if you're B2B or B2C, B2B often has more than one sort of decision maker, meaning if you look at the data of whom is buying, there might actually be more decision makers behind that and therefore calibrating it accordingly. But so I think it's more about trying to analyze sort of what you have in front of you,
Yeah.
and then start doing incremental tests of what works and what doesn't work. And again, it doesn't really matter what size you may be at. You will be able to do these type of incremental tests. But I think sort of going back to this shift of behavior, we are in this paradigm shift at the moment. I mean, we are where PC went to mobile, and now we're going from search engine going AI.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting approach, right?
Very much. And you have those that almost, partly a lot of people have left, the traditional marketing space for digital. But now all of a sudden offline is attractive again. So it's like almost like the 90s coming back at you again. It's almost like fashion. It comes in waves, but it's a good opportunity to do offline activities as well. But I think it all depends on age group. I think it all depends on sort of country, segmentation, interest, niche, and ultimately, what do you offer on your site, on your app, and the likes?
Yeah, and I think one thing that many companies are forgetting when it comes to again understanding the consumer behavior and the evolving shifts in consumer behavior is that it's in what people are focusing on is a lot how to target these people, how to get these people on my site. The part that they're missing is that, okay, you figured out how they search and how they get to your site. But once they get on your site, this is another component that they're going to be interacting with. And we are expecting that every user will interact with the website the same way. Now, what are you doing on your website to make sure that the consumer behavior of your target group is addressed? What are you doing if they subscribe to your email newsletter to make sure that the content you delivered can be digested by them? What are you doing to push them back to your site to complete a purchase or submit a lead? And again, what are you doing in the follow-up? What are you doing in the sales process? So essentially, this shifting consumer behavior, which seems like very easy on paper, they're going from TV to digital, they're going from search engine to ChatGPT, is way more complex because it is going to have a humongous impact on the business across the board anywhere they are going to have a touch point with your business. So it's not a very easy undertaking, right? But I'm sure you have seen the results on your clients when they follow that approach. So you're right. You're right in saying that it's a 360 degrees approach. But now a client, somebody might come to us and be like, either, oh, I'm too busy, or I don't have the budget. What would you say is the easiest way to get into that mindset and start doing something?
I mean, the budget. The thing here is that to at least sort of get things under control is that most of what we've been talking about up until now is free.
Yeah.
But I think to get things going and do something would be to start by at least gathering the right type of data. Because with the right type of data, you will at least start seeing what what type of demographics are coming to your website, what age groups are they, what channels are they coming from, what countries are they coming from, as a starting block. And then as a follow-up to that, then one can start doing some relatively basic research in terms of what is popular among sort of certain age groups in certain niches in certain countries. And I mean, for example, I mean, Facebook is in many countries among a bit more junior people, sort of a no-go to. In South Africa, as an example, it's still extremely popular. And so if you were American launching something in South Africa, for example, you would probably say no to Facebook.
Yeah.
That's a go-to, because that's not part of your playbook. But one needs to start playing with the data that you have at hand, and then with a lot of information that you have out there, in terms of, and then I think, as we often do with a lot of things that I think one should be doing, we start experimenting. It's like almost like running any type of creative campaign, for that matter. Is static one picture working? Is a carousel better? Is video even better? How many frames? Where should it be? What call to action? I mean, this is now starting to become the guessing game in terms of how and what we should be doing, I believe, in terms of what works for these segments. Where do we get the engagement from? And is the landing page that we're driving them to actually correlating to the messaging? Are we over-promising in our marketing and driving them to a page that is loading slowly, like plus 4 seconds, say?
No,
but I mean, what's your take on all this, Rocco?
well, I usually tell people to start, let's say it's just getting their toes wet on that. The first thing that I tell them to start on is understanding their audience. I'll give you an example. A lot of companies here in Miami are targeting an Hispanic population when it comes to advertising. What works extremely well is when you run Facebook ads, to just drive them to WhatsApp as no landing page, no nothing. Write a message to the business. Conversion rate goes through the roof, and that's because the Hispanic population, the biggest majority of them, they're very big on WhatsApp, and they prefer the way of communication, very much more immediate. That wouldn't work with white Americans, because they barely use WhatsApp. They use text messages instead. So that's already a consumer behavior that is very defined, that if you know your audience even a little bit, and you can just do that by speaking to somebody in that audience, you will figure it out. Now, that will save you quite a bit of money in generating leads. So the first step that I always tell my clients to take is talk to a customer. It's free, and understand how they like to communicate. Now, the other thing that I always tell customers is experiment on your landing page. Try different way of communicating things that allow you to understand how your user interact with you, and give them the most possible ways to interact with you. So I usually have them have a form, a chat, a WhatsApp, a phone number, because that is going to tell you what you're going to get the most of, and then you can make it extremely prominent as your main call to action. So essentially start with things that cost them nothing, but they can let them understand how the behavior of their own consumer is evolving. And from that point on, I start adding up on top a little bit. So for example, I might start adding testing email marketing follow-ups. And maybe I start adding on top of that, instead of an email marketing, a text message follow-up. What is getting you the best response? Is your audience an audience that wants to communicate in an easy way? They prefer a phone call. and that helps me like gradually get them where they need to be. That's usually what I do.
I mean, that makes also perfect sense. And I mean, I think I guess like our approaches are similar but slightly different. I get your data sort of right versus speak to your clients, um, and approach it that way. And I guess I like the data approach because it's also free. It's not that difficult to set up, really. It's not. Um, and you will directly start having a unbiased sort of feedback that is very black and white, uh, in terms of sort of analyzing the data. Well, I think when you interview in panel discussions or when you look at and speak to people, you will get different responses, most likely.
True. You will get different responses, but if you find even one common thread, you start with something. Because one of the problems that happens with only using data is that you're missing the human component. You're using the human component, you're missing the data component. I think combining the two, particularly.
No, I mean, I was about to say that too. It's like by combining the two, then all of a sudden we start talking, and then therefore, like the new formats would be almost be omni, but you don't have to start omni-channel. You can start by sort of building it out and validating, and not stressing it.
I agree. And Alex, like what is interesting though is, right, like from our chats, you can clearly see how different South African, European, American customers are, right? So that's one of the things we covered, I think, a couple of episodes ago when I was mentioning, Alex, I do think that it is very important that whoever does this job has an understanding of multicultural environments, because it's, even if the same country, you don't target same age group but from different background the same way. So you start seeing how customer behavior is emerging in a cultural way, right? Like it's very fascinating how hiring somebody that does PPC and has never traveled, for example, has never experienced another culture, in an environment like it is today, it starts at a disadvantage, because if you're never interacted with Hispanic, how do you know that they use WhatsApp? If you're never interacted with somebody from South Africa, how do you know that maybe Facebook is not the right channel? There are a lot of things, right, that come into play. That's why when experience is not only experience in PPC now, it becomes experience in knowing people.
But I think like a big important one though is that, and I think what I again wanted to sort of push at, when we sort of do, when we sort of prep for sort of rolling out maybe to new markets and so on, again using data, by looking at what markets one should potentially, if you get a lot of organic data from somewhere, but you might not have the local language on that website, then you can start sort of by playing according to the rules, by setting up a local landing page in that language, see if they actually start converting in a better sense in the local language. And then there are quite a lot of very interesting reports out there by now. So you can actually look at it from the various country bases.
Yeah.
What is popular here, what's popular there. And then a tool that is pretty, it can be, it's pretty pricey, but SimilarWeb is a tool that goes pretty deep into information. And it's fascinating just in terms of how and what you can get out of the various channels that your potential competitors are using, including WhatsApp, for example.
Yeah, that's very interesting, Alex. And I think what I would suggest our listeners to do is to always, even if you cannot speak to the customer, try to speak with people that are in the target group that you're trying to target for a business, and it never harms to learn. And as Alex pointed out, data. It's very easy to collect data these days. It's free most of the times, and that should be what drives you. And data, looking at data can also help you understand what kind of content you need to keep pushing if you're doing SEO, right? Like looking at how people interact with it. So try to put more focus, and this is very important. That this is something that needs to be prioritized in a business.
Now, and I mean, we've only spoken about channel to website and checkout type of information. We've been working also with sort of customer insight data, or in how they behave. So customer experience and also UX, and also where potential sort of drop-offs are occurring. And so actually Microsoft, I'm dropping something, but Microsoft has also dropped a thing called Clarity.
Okay.
And which is free. And basically is like Hotjar. Hotjar, for those that don't know, you used to sort of give you heat maps, or still gives like heat maps of like where people are clicking a lot on your website, and then does recordings of like, i.e. checkouts, and you can then start observing why people might actually drop off. This Microsoft Clarity does this for you. And you can start looking at people coming from this country, with this source. How are they engaging with the website? Why are they dropping off here? And it gives you a lot of information for free in terms of how your current users and potential customers are engaging with your website, and why they may not continue in becoming a customer. And start using that type of tool, you will be able to almost run experiments without needing to pay for an experimentation tool. Because there ain't any free ones out anymore.
That's pretty convenient, isn't it?
But I think like from that angle, I think, yeah, I mean, we live in a world, and we haven't even spoken to the shifts of what is happening, and sort of, we've been talking a lot about AI. I mean, AI will just go stronger next year. I think, and I'm seeing it also on a lot of our clients that are starting to pick up a lot of referral traffic and conversions from various AI LLMs, Perplexity being one. And you don't have to be a humongous website that is extremely sort of dominated in terms of the eyes of Google. You don't need to. You just need to ensure that you can be picked up. And it's not that difficult. They're more like, I know no one really speaks about VR and augmented reality anymore, but I think that's coming more and more as well. The more I've been listening to Google's latest, not Google, but Meta's latest glasses.
Yeah, I think augmented reality, the moment is going to be more accessible from a price standpoint. It's going to be huge.
Yeah. So all these type of activities shifts and also challenges us as marketeers. And I again see us as marketeers, as marketing as a function to increase business KPIs, and branding is something different that is supporting overarching sort of company and sort of values. And yes, helps with marketing and overall sales, but many more things.
And that's also a nice way to like greet all of our listeners. It was a great way to essentially summarize everything we've talked about, Alex. And I would like to remind also something that we already have an episode scheduled for November 27th. So please remember that we are going to start sending the invites this week now that we did these episodes. But Alex, I think that wraps up a very good conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today as well. I know you have a very busy schedule like I do these days. Any other remarks you would like to make? As a reminder, don't forget to follow our LinkedIn page, the Digital Marketing Podcast. That will help us post all the content in one place. So we appreciate you for that.
Great. I mean, I see you in a week's time, I guess.
Sounds
yeah,
good.
less than a week. And
good one, everybody.
have a good one. Ciao.
Bye.